Tia, in what could be a surprise move from PDP Laban Party or faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa has filed a certificate of candidacy for president. De la Rosa said that he accepted the nomination because the party told him that they could no longer find anyone or a standard bearer who could continue the legacy of President Rodrigo Duterte. De la Rosa, however, said that he is open on the possibility of Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte replacing him. But De la Rosa also defended accusations or claims that he is making a mockery of the election process. Let's listen in.
Do I look like a mockery to you? Huh?
Sir, but you say...
Do I look like a mockery to you? I won as a senator. Number 5 po ako last election.
Also earlier, President Duterte showed his full support to the PDP Laban senatorial slate who filed their COCs this afternoon. It includes Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo, Agrarian Reform Secretary John Castriciones, the ICT Secretary and former Senator Gringo Honasan, Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission Chairman Greco Belgica, and House Deputy Speaker Rodante Marcoleta, as well as Robin Padilla and broadcaster Ray Langit. Mocha Uson also filed her COC for party list representative under Mocha for Mothers for Change party list. The president did not give a speech and immediately left after endorsing and taking photos with the PDP Laban bets. In the meantime, Senator Kiko Pangilinan also filed the COC for Vice President this morning. He was accompanied by Vice President Lenny Robredo. Former Ifugao Representative and Liberal Party Vice President Teddy Bagilat also filed the COC for senators. Meantime, Senators Win Gatchalian, Laila De Lima, Richard Gordon, and former Vice President Noli De Castro also filed their COCs for senator. The race for party list groups also heats up with star-studded aspirants Nora Honor, Carla Estrada, and party list led by actor Tom Rodriguez filed their COCs. Overall, the Commission on Elections said that the week-long conduct of COC filing nationwide was peaceful, but it ain't over until it's over because the substitution period is still until November 15. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan Odalo there reporting. Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte again rejects calls to run for president. In her latest post on Facebook, the presidential daughter thanks those who expressed their support, but says she is, quote, presenting myself to the Dabaweños as mayor for the third and last time in my life as a politician, unquote. The mayor is also calling on the public to work together for honest, orderly, and credible elections during the week-long filing of COCs in Pasay. Her supporters, donning green, have gathered outside Sofitel's Harbor Garden tent. They include a group of barangay officials from Davao City who flew into Manila earlier this week for Presidential Chief Legal Counsel and senatorial aspirant Salvador Panelo. It's not yet too late for Sara Duterte.
And then, lahat nananalangin na dumating siya. Oh, meron pa naman November 15 kung hindi dumating yan.
So, umaasa tayo na substitution yung gagawin?
Maraming umaasa na sana'y magbago ang kanyang isipan.
Pero as of now, wala po tayong info.
Sa ngayon, ang alam ko nasa Maynila siya, hindi siya tumuloy ng Singapore. Hindi ko alam kung nagdarasal pa ang taong bayan.
Expect surprises or last-minute changes if aspirants make use of the substitution option. Now, how does that work? First, there's what the COMELEC calls voluntary substitution, where an aspirant gives way to a fellow party member. Take President Duterte, for example. He was able to run for the top post in 2016, even if he submitted his COC a month after the deadline. He substituted for party mate Martin Dino. Dino filed his COC as PDP Laban's presidential nominee, but withdrew. There is also involuntary substitution, which can be applied if a candidate dies or gets disqualified. A relative who shares the same surname may jump in until noontime of election day. The COMELEC says the substitution option is not available for aspirants running as independents. Analysts believe it is time to scrap the substitution system, describing it as deceptive. There is a November 15 deadline, so names in the ballot will only be finalized after that.
You're fooling the people. You're lying to the people. From the very beginning, you already know what you want to do. And then you just pretend that you've changed your mind.
The COMELEC says it will issue a tentative list of COC filers this October 29th. Now, the opposition tandem has been revealed. Vice President Leni Robredo picked Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan as her running mate. But what made her choose Pangilinan, and why is she running as an independent? Our senior correspondent, Anjo Alimario, gives us details.
It's official. Vice President Leni Robredo and Senator Francis Pangilinan are the faces of the opposition in next year's elections. Facing the media for the first time, Robredo explained why she chose Pangilinan.
Unang-una, matagal na kami magkasangga sa laban. Pangalawa, shared yung aming mga paniniwala, mga prinsipyo, mga aspirations para sa bayan. Paano namin dadalhin yung bayan?
Pangilinan turned emotional as he accepted Robredo's challenge.
Ang pangarap ko para sa bayan, sana all may trabaho at maayos na kita. Sana all may sapat na pagkain sa mesa. Sana all may bakuna. Sana all ligtas sa sakit. Sana all may sariling tahanan. Sana all makapagtapos ng pag-aaral.
Robredo is running as an independent but clarified she's not leaving the Liberal Party.
Running for independent is our symbolic way of showing na bukas kami sa pakikipag-alyansa sa maraming mga partido.
Pink dominated the digital
booster shots.
Wala naman tayong nakikita na nagwe-wane yung protection ng mga vaccine, no? Wala naman tayong nakikitang pagdami ng nagkakaroon ng breakthrough infections through time.
Napag-aralan na po ng ating mga eksperto itong booster doses or third doses. Nakita po dito sa mga pag-aaral na sila gawa na wala pa hong sapat na ebidensya para magbigay tayo ng third doses sa ngayon.
FDA's latest data show breakthrough infections account for less than 1% of the fully vaccinated. 516 COVID cases and 14 deaths out of 20 million. Majority had Sinovac under age 18 to 39.
Kaya yung nakikita rin naman natin breakthrough infection, reflective din naman, no, on the proportion ng vaccines. Walang namamatay dito sa 18 to 39 age group ng mga vaccinated. Kahit 5% lamang yung senior citizens na nagkakaroon ng as percentage of the breakthrough infections, all the deaths are almost coming from the senior citizens.
This is only based on community reports to the FDA. Breakthrough infection refers to COVID infection 2 weeks after a person completed the vaccination. The health department says it also did a survey among 10,000 health workers. While 90% wanted a booster, only half are willing to take it without experts' recommendation.
Hindi sarado ang ating, hindi tayo sarado sa booster. We also would like to recommend that, but we need to complete the evidence.
Several countries like the US already give booster to people with compromised immune system. There were already reports of waning efficacy of vaccines like Sinovac, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca at about 6 months. If that's really the case, infectious diseases expert Dr. Regine Solante tells CNN Philippines there could be an uptick on breakthrough infections by the end of the year. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
Government officials are upbeat on the continuous arrival of COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccine czar says the country is receiving about 1.4 million doses every day. Officials are urging local governments to encourage constituents to take the vaccine. Here's what Carlito Galvez had to say about calls to let LGUs purchase their COVID-19 shots directly from manufacturers.
Dapat malaman ng LGU, we have enough vaccine. Hindi na kailangan bumili. Bumili na lang sila ng syringes, yung tuberculosis syringes. Kasi bumabaha na yung vaccine natin, bakit pa tayo bibili? Makakukuha tayo niyan. Ang ano natin, tsaka unang-una, walang manufacturer na gusto na diretsyo. Gusto nila yun sa gobyerno kasi mas mabilis. Ang ano natin siguro, magkaroon tayo ng programa, maybe 2022. Pero sa ngayon, marami na po tayong vaccine. 33 million nasa stockpile natin, nasa warehouses ng LGUs at ng CHP.
Galvez adds he's hoping that half of the population will be vaccinated by the end of the year. A big step towards COVID-19 vaccines for younger children in the United States. Pfizer seeks emergency use approval from regulators to administer shots to kids aged 5 to 11 years old. CNN's Mandy Gaither has more in today's Health Minute.
If authorized, it would be the first COVID-19 vaccine for younger children. Pfizer officially applying for emergency use authorization for kids ages 5 to 11.
This is an important development.
The FDA has scheduled time to review the Pfizer data October 26th. That would be followed by consideration by the CDC. While it's still unclear how long a decision may take, here was the timeline for adults. Pfizer applied for an EUA on November 20th, 2020. It was authorized December 11th.
We are ready. We have the supply. We're working with states to set up convenient locations for parents and kids to get vaccinated, including pediatricians' offices and community sites.
Pfizer says in trials, more than 2,200 children were given 1/3 of the dose adults get. The company found its vaccine safe and generated a robust antibody response. But officials know
Garcia will go up against former Tourism Secretary Joseph Ace Durano, who criticized her pandemic response efforts. She shrugged off the criticism, saying Durano only made noise when election season neared. Garcia was previously Cebu governor from 2004 to 2013. In Albay, Legazpi City Mayor Noel Rosal will run for governor of the province. Rosal will challenge incumbent Governor Al Francis Bichara, who is running for his third and final term. Rosal's wife, Geraldine, also filed her COC, aiming to succeed him as mayor. When we return, an up close with presidential aspirant Senator Bato de la Rosa. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Going back to our top story, Senator Bato de la Rosa is gunning for the presidency in a surprise move. On the last day of the filing of COCs, de la Rosa will be running under the ruling party, PDP Laban. He now joins us live for Up Close. Good evening, Senator Bato, and thank you very much for joining us, sir. Nagulat naman po kami sa inyo para po kayong, for lack of a better comparison, para po kayong Jack in the Box. Biglang lumabas kayo ng ganon. Nakakagulat naman.
Well, diskarte yan, Pia. Para pag maaga ka kasi mag-announce,
diskarte.
Sisirain ka kaagad. Kaya, tama yung last minute na pag-file natin.
Oo, so parang diskarte na surprise. Pero sir, last minute na pag-file, tapos sabi nyo, hindi na, parang nga hindi ma-transmit, malaman ng ibang tao. Pero last minute din po ba yung decision na maging had run it, no? When you were Chief PNP, you were the first Chief PNP of President Duterte from 2016 June hanggang 2018. Tuloy po ba yon as it is, as it was?
Is Radio Philippines Network, P-Triple-X Zamboanga, P-Triple-X Zamboanga. The Great 108,
Huy, naunsa man ka? Nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalo na ko. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho? O sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una. Ginhawag lawom, ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo. Maong akong taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Malaking problema na talagang the next administration will have to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, is the pandemic. So ano po yung plano ninyo para sa pandemya? Welcome back to CNN Philippines. You're still watching our Up Close segment with former Senator Bato de la Rosa, who just this afternoon filed his certificate of candidacy to run for president under the ruling party, the PDP Laban. Senator Bato, kanina ang tanong ko po syempre malaking problema yung drug war, the war against crime also, but ang pinakamalaking problema na talagang the next administration will have to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, is the pandemic. So ano po yung plano ninyo para sa pandemya? Paano po yung government response to the pandemic, Senator Bato?
Well, gagawin natin yan para makarecover tayo sa epekto ng pandemic. Kung papala rin man, dapat kumuha tayo ng magaling na economic team natin para siguradong maganda yung mga gagawin natin programa. Yun po ang ating gagawin. Hindi tayo kukuha ng mga economic team na mahina. Dapat yung malalakas para gaganda yung takbo ng ating bansa economically. As I have said, hindi ko forte yung ekonomiya, hindi ko forte yan, pero I'm willing to listen to advisors.
Okay, so a team of very good economic experts. Paano po yung health experts, sir? Or you would hire, you would get Francisco Duque to be your health secretary again. Same team ngayon. Para bang yun po ba yung kukunin nyo para i-handle yung pandemic?
Hindi naman si Duque lang ang magaling. Marami pa naman dyan. So, pwede naman siguro tayo kumuha ng magagaling na health experts na para tumugon sa problema ng pandemya, di ba?
Okay. Senator Bato, I remember the day after the elections na interview ko po kayo and tinatanong ko po, you said that kung merong, and I paraphrase, no, kung merong mga seminar dyan na pwede kong i-attendan, I will go to those seminars, etc. And that kind of stuck to people's minds, no. So now the question is, if you're running for president, you filed COC for president, so ngayon pa lang talagang puspusan na ang inyong paghahanda para maging pangulo. You will really do everything in your power to prepare just in case you do run and you do win as president.
Yeah, kailangan talagang mag-prepare ka. Pero Pia, you have to take note na yung sinabi ko na kailangan ko magpa-train dahil nga legislation is a new world for me. I have been with the executive branch of government in my whole life. First time na ako, bago lang ako nalipat sa legislative. So, ito naman pagkapangulo ay more on execution of laws, more on administration. So, I think hindi ako ganong mahirapan. Hindi ako mahirapan. Doon lang ako nahirapan sa pagiging senador dahil nga
Mahirapan po.
bago sa akin yun, bago.
Oo. Mahirapan po ba kayo, Senator Bato? Halimbawa, President Bato, Senator Bato de la Rosa, sir, thank you very much for joining us here on Up Close on Newsnight. Salamat po, sir. Create more livelihood opportunities for Filipinos even beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. That is the long-term goal of a diversified conglomerate with its programs. Over 200 residents of the San Miguel Christian Gayeta Village received their paychecks from the Dole Tupad program after completing temporary work. But San Miguel Corporation, in partnership with the government, is hoping to help them find housing and stable income to last even after the pandemic.
Ang atin pong programang pabahay dito sa pamumuno ni Ginoong Ramon Ang ng San Miguel Corporation ay hindi natatapos sa pagpapalipat lamang ng mga residente sa baybay dagat ng daylayan ng Sariaya, Quezon. Ito po ay may kasamang pangkabuhayan. Kagaya nitong event natin ngayon, meron tayong tupad payout. Isa sa mga programa ng gobyerno yung pagbibigay ng tulong pangkabuhayan para sa ating mga displaced workers. So, ito po ay na-access natin.
SMC also encourages individuals to avail of TESDA's free skills training programs, including alongside Russian journalist Dmitry Muratov, who founded a similar news company. Ressa is the first Filipino to win the prestigious award. Previous winners include Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Lech Walesa, Mikhail Gorbachev, and 4 U.S. presidents. 78 days left before Christmas, and that is it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again at 7 for News.ph. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
The first, the leader.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda.
D-Triple-X Zamboanga.
Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Many of us have heard about ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Initially first diagnosed in childhood, but it can last into adulthood. It's a mental health condition that affects a person's ability to focus, sit still, and control impulsive behaviors. As a result, one's quality of life can be affected. But with proper education, treatment, and support, adults living with it can manage and thrive. On the program today, we'll discuss how to diagnose ADHD, its misconceptions, and how to manage it. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk only on CNN Philippines. ADHD often goes unrecognized throughout childhood. But the more responsibilities we have as we get older, the greater the demand on our capacity to focus, stay organized, and be reliable. This is why it's important to diagnose and treat the condition as early as possible. Let's welcome our guests for today. With us is Dr. Corazon Angela Cuadro. She's an adult psychiatrist from the Medical City. Also with us is Dr. Angie Sievert Fernandez. She's a child developmental psychologist from the St. Luke's Medical Center. Dr. Quads, tell us what it means for adults with ADHD to lack focus, because it's a bit more than just finding it hard to listen in class or to listen to a speech, isn't it?
In adults, we usually see manifestations in terms of impulsivity, irritability, a difficulty focusing, maybe some restlessness, a little fidgeting over here and there. So that's the typical presentation of ADHD in adults. And of course, in terms of how that manifests in the adult life, then that will be seen in occupational functioning, academic functioning, social, in relationships, in activities of daily living like managing of finances, chores around the house, the daily grind.
Dr. Angie, could you tell us how it would manifest within a child? At what age would one expect this type of condition to be seen, and how would this progress?
What is important for people to understand is just because makulit, malikot, doesn't mean may ADHD na agad. There are things that we have to be looking at also. Okay, how many of these symptoms do they manifest? They have to manifest as children at least 6 of the listed symptoms. Plus, it has to occur in two settings. Hindi lang sa bahay, hindi lang sa school, hindi lang sa parties, but at least in two settings, it occurs consistently. Okay? Kasi minsan, Dr. Freddy, may tendency na di nakafocus, malikot, ay may ADHD yan. But it goes more, it goes beyond that.
Aside from some of the symptoms that you mentioned, how ADHD can present in adulthood, are there other practical applications where we could see that there could be a possibility of a diagnosis of ADHD? Let's go with, let's say, for example, career choices, or maybe how well they have stability in their life. Could this be a telltale sign of ADHD?
You know how sometimes there are career choices that don't fit that. So there would be obvious bothersome symptoms that way. For example, some find that they don't fit well with some patients with ADHD find that they don't fit well with a desk job. Some find that they thrive more when they are out in the field. Halimbawa lang po yun So maybe that's an example.
How would someone know the difference between maybe just a plain behavioral problem and that of ADHD? So how would ADHD in an adult be diagnosed?
It would be worthwhile to go
Kasi Dr. Freddy, and over the years of, working with children with ADHD, this marunong sumunod, interrupt, and so the child gets name called, the child gets
they face and some of the misconceptions of the condition. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. Dr. Quads, ADHD can make life difficult for anyone. What are some of the complications that can arise kapag adult na ang isang taong may ADHD?
Children and adolescents and eventually adults, if they don't understand that the experience or the manifestations are actually symptoms of ADHD, they tend to grow up believing, feeling, thinking that they are inferior to their peers, to schoolmates, or to office mates, maybe even less behaved, less obedient, or pasaway.
Parents may find it difficult initially to maybe think that their child may have ADHD. So are there some concrete red flags that they can look at? And one of those things is schoolwork. So what does the performance of a child with ADHD look like?
If a child is predominantly hyperactive, the child will have difficulty staying safe. The child will keep on moving. Okay. However, the child can still do some schoolwork. That means cognitive functioning is also still okay. And then they won't see it masyado as a problem. However, when we are working with children with ADHD, there are what we call comorbidities. Some things are likely to happen more with children with ADHD than others. And so what are some red flags? Learning disabilities, that can be one. Okay. Low self-esteem, the way they see themselves, more likely to develop mood disorders, for example, like being sad and depressed or being anxious. These are some things that we can look at also.
Dr. Quads, let's clear something up, starting with a misconception that ADHD isn't a real condition.
It is a medical condition. It is the most common neurodevelopmental disorder. And we do have diagnostic criteria like Dr. Angie mentioned.
Now, another misconception is that many believe that people with ADHD just need to try harder. They think that because those with ADHD can hyper-focus on their interests, they can do so with other tasks if they really wanted to. Dr. Angie, could you explain this for us?
I've worked with a number of kids, and it really breaks my heart because they will say, but I'm trying. I'm doing my best and I can't. And we really have to listen to children. I think that's very important. Listen to your child when they say they're trying and they still can't do it. Because it's not for a lack of trying. It's because it's beyond their control. And when we talk about, Dr. Freddy, about hyperfocus, there are certain environments, there are certain situations that can be highly stimulating, certain activities that can highly be highly stimulating. And this is when hyperfocus comes in. However, if it's, let's say, the more mundane, less stimulating activities, that's where you see the distractibility really come to the surface. And that's when you're able to say, ay nako, wala, di makafocus.
Now, another misconception is that kids will outgrow ADHD, but many adults are living with this condition. Dr. Angie, discuss this a little bit more with me. Is it possible if a child is diagnosed with ADHD, they can outgrow it?
They do not outgrow ADHD. Again, we said it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. Mm-hmm. It's brain-based, it's biological. Once you have it, you live with it for life. However, the difference there would be the ability to manage it better. It may not ever go away. However, your capacity to manage it, to live a good life despite having ADHD, can happen.
If you've been diagnosed with ADHD, you can learn to manage your condition and, better yet, thrive.
Centers in hospitals, they have all of these trainings, conferences, and talks for parents that can educate parents. And mismo, us, psychologists, or like Dr. Quads, as psychiatrists, we can also take it upon ourselves to educate the parents and let them understand better how to support their kids having ADHD.
Is stigma a problem when it comes to trying to spot or diagnose a child with ADHD early?
Yes, it is, because the parents will label the kids generally. Ang kulit, ang gulo, nakakahiya naman to. You don't want to bring him to a social gathering. You don't want to, when people are over the house and he's so magulo and he keeps on interrupting. So it matters to the parents and even to the teachers, because the teachers also have a difficult time managing the behavior and can start labeling, can start picking up, calling the attention of the child more often.
Now let's talk about medication, because this can also be prescribed for adults with ADHD. And studies show that majority of adults with ADHD who take medication have big improvements in their symptoms. Dr. Quads, what are some of the different types of medication available?
And what we need to do is understand, listen, and support our children the best way possible. And we can do this by seeking help if we are unable to do it ourselves at home.
And Dr. Quads, any advice for those adults who may have or who do have ADHD?
What we aim to do is to streamline management per patient. And that's what health education or psychoeducation with the family also targets to do. We want to streamline and, as best we can, tailor fit the management for each individual with ADHD.
I'd like to thank adult psychiatrist Dr. Corazon Angela Cuadro and child psychologist Dr. Angie Sievert Fernandez for guiding us on today's episode. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time. Stay safe, everyone.